This is KHTS News Director Jade Abishan, and I'm here today with Santa Clarita Congressman Mike Garcia. How are you doing today, Mike?
Hey, Jade. I'm doing well. It's been a difficult couple of weeks here, heartbreaking couple of weeks, but we're doing great things for the folks and working hard still. But happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, speaking of heartbreaking, let's start with the heavy stuff. Afghanistan, that's the main topic dominating the news this month. And I understand it's a very fluid situation, but you're a veteran yourself. You serve in the U.S. Navy. You served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. What is your perspective?
Well, like I said, the only real word that comes to mind is heartbreaking. This is something that was predictable. This was something that was completely preventable. This is something actually for the last 4 or 5 months I've been warning against. And as soon as the president mentioned that he was withdrawing unconditionally from Afghanistan with a pre-set date of 9/11. I knew this was the path we were heading down, and to be honest, this is probably the most flagrant violation and dereliction of duty that a commander-in-chief has committed in our nation's history, and we still now see thousands of Americans who were left behind, likely tens of thousands of our Afghan partners who were applying for special visas to come back to the United States. These are folks that fought alongside of us, in many cases saved American lives. One of the Afghan interpreters actually who is left behind and stranded is actually the guy that actually saved then Senator Biden's life when his helicopter got stranded. I believe it was in 2008 in Afghanistan under very difficult terrain and circumstances. This interpreter was able to rescue Biden, of all people, and this gentleman is now behind the lines. My office has been effectively running as an operations center with my district director, Charles, leading efforts to help get people out. And I think when it's all said and done, we're going to be probably one of the most successful congressional offices nationwide that help people get out of Afghanistan. As of today, we have successfully helped 97 people out of Afghanistan. Many of them are American citizens. Many of them are Afghan SIV applicants or family members of our constituents or American citizens. But that wasn't because of the State Department. We were actually less successful getting folks out when we referred them to the State Department or when we followed the State Department's lead. And so this is a travesty. This is literally going to lead to the death of hundreds of Americans. We're getting word of dozens of children, American children, that are still left stranded there. And there really is no vehicle right now to bring them back home safely besides hope and just trying to keep them alive in different locations. So that's literally all we can do. So heartbreaking is the word, and anger. And, this president has been lying to us over the last couple of months, and especially in the last 2 weeks, about the progress. He's been lying to us about the mission. And now he's trying to take credit for this as a successful operation and touting the fact that this is the largest evacuation in such a short period of time. And it's similar to the captain of the Titanic trying to take credit for one of the largest maritime rescues in our history. This is not a success. This is a direct result and a failure of this president who didn't listen to his military, didn't use common sense, and pulled his military out before he brought home American civilians. And you don't need a master's degree from Georgetown University in National Security Studies to know that this is the absolute wrong way to conduct an evacuation. I don't want us to stay in Afghanistan forever. I didn't want that. No one does. And this was something that we ultimately did need to wrap up and bring everyone home. But the way you evacuate, the way you bring troops home, and the way you draw down matters. And this was literally the worst possible way that this president could have executed this mission. And it's a function of him giving the keys and the mission to the State Department rather than the Defense Department, and treating this like a diplomatic mission against a threat that is literally trying to kill us and actually did blow us up, killing 13 of our military personnel. And this is again just a direct result of the poor decision making. So my prayers are with the families and the folks who have lost their lives in this. And I wish I could say that this is going to get better before this is all done, but it's not. This is actually going to get worse. We're hearing stories now of families getting executed, and we're hearing horror stories of Americans left behind enemy lines, and they're just literally scrambling right now to just stay alive. And this is a nightmare situation that's going to continue. And worse yet, Jay, this is actually, I know you were, 4 years old when 9/11 happened, and it's hard to believe that, it's 20 years ago now, but the reality is that Afghanistan is now going to become a playground and breeding ground for terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, as well as the Taliban. And they're going to unite. They're going to have gang wars there. But ultimately, they're going to be a bigger threat to the United States than they were on September 10th of 2001. And this didn't end any wars. This effectively extended the global war on terror, and has made this a massive threat against our nation's security. So it is all on this president. It's on his advisors, his Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. But we're doing everything we can from our office to help as many folks as we can. But the levers at our disposal are quickly evaporating, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. I know some people, there appears to be a little bit of confusion as to whether or not this is essentially emergency immigration, whether we're taking home American citizens, whether we are just trying to save refugees. Could you tell me a little bit more about what your office is doing in terms of visas and such?
Yeah, we were helping folks of really three flavors, and trying to do our best. And we were prioritizing the American citizens, obviously, the ones that we knew were there. And we were somewhat successful in doing that. There's still one family that we know of, a mother and her three children, who were denied access to the airfield despite having blue American passports, because the Taliban turned them away in the last day. So we're trying to get that family to safety, and we're still pursuing that. So we prioritized American citizens and their families, and then we prioritized the SIV, or the Special Immigration Visa folks, and then we tried to keep families whole. And this was one of the fundamental problems with the White House's strategy. Is they said, let's prioritize Americans. The problem is that some of these Americans, after 20 years, have family members, like their wives or their kids, who are not necessarily American citizens living in Afghanistan. And so when you ask them, do you want to leave, their natural response is, no, I'm going to stay here. I need to be with my family, protect my family. And so what our office was doing was trying to keep families intact, not separate them, but bring them through the SIV application process, and seek whatever means we could to get them onto the airfield and onto aircraft. And to be honest, the bureaucracy and the guidance from the State Department made it extremely difficult. There was mass confusion on the ground, and that actually slowed the process down more than it helped. But we were certainly prioritizing American citizens, then SIV applicants, but at the same time and in parallel, making sure that all of their families were trying to keep whole in one fell swoop as well. So. And we had to make decisions, and unfortunately, we weren't able to get everyone home. The biggest mistake that we see out of this is that the president never came off of the deadline. Right? He never said, let's stay till October or however long it takes to get every single American home. He stuck to this artificial deadline of August 31st yesterday. And when you back that up, that means you actually start losing opportunities a couple days before that, and it simply was not enough time. He lied to us about the number of Americans over there. He lied to us about the mission of getting every American out, and now they're lying to us about the number of Americans that remain behind, and it's going to be in the thousands. When you hear the number 250, that may be the number of Americans left behind in Kabul, where the airfield we were dealing with was. But that's certainly not the total number of Americans throughout the entire country of Afghanistan who were unable to get to Kabul. And that's the real story that's not being told right now.
No, that's entirely understandable. I mean, I know how hard it is just to keep count of somebody within our own state. So once you put international borders in there, I could see how complex that could become. Ugh.
Yeah, but that's why you don't set artificial deadlines. You make it a condition-based exit criteria. You spend the last 6 months trying to get everyone accounted for rather than the last 10 days, and they failed to do that, and that's why we are where we are now.
Wow. Well, thank you. That was very helpful, actually. If you were just joining us, we are here with Congressman Mike Garcia, who's telling us about what he's been up to in this district, as well as giving his perspective on the current situation in Afghanistan. Let's move on to a couple of local emergencies. So, wildfires, the super scoopers landed in LA this week. I was at a press conference welcoming them this morning, actually. And our heavy fire season is coming up. Now we know that the fire
Yep.
season is pretty much year round at this point. But you recently sponsored the Fire Act. What is that, and can you tell me about it?
Yeah, before I talk about that, at a macro level, the problem that we have right now is we still are so dependent on these super scoopers. First of all, they're Canadian assets that we lease. We don't own them. They go super slow. They don't carry that much water, and they carry water, right? So not only does it take them a long time to get to where the flames are, but they carry a smaller payload of water, which a lot of that evaporates before it hits the ground. And so something that we've been pushing is to get more C-130s, which are a larger aerial tanker, retrofitted with the airborne firefighting equipment that drops that red phos check, and that's the stuff that actually does create the barriers and stops the fires in their tracks. So we've been pushing to get an additional 6 to 8 C-130s. There's currently 2 out in Ventura, and those will make a big difference. The Fire Act that you mentioned is a simple bill that gets funding to NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to help them start investing in technologies such as artificial intelligence, as well as predictive modeling, so that when the fires first start, they have the capability to detect them sooner, and then once the fires are in full swing, they have a better opportunity to predict the behavior of the fires and allow firefighters on the ground and in the air to start building barriers and trench lines, et cetera, to proactively prevent the spread of the fire as much as possible. So this is focused on investing in the technology that enables NOAA to be a partner with local fire agencies to help them mitigate the spread. I've also co-sponsored the PROTECT Act, which is a way that the federal government now enables its land managers on federal land to start doing things like brush clearance. This is one of the primary issues we have, is there's so much dead brush in the forest. This allows them to proactively go remove and actually also do things like prescribed burns, which in the 80s and 90s we used to do prescribed burns, and this was when in the off season we would remove a lot of the fuel from the forest and do it under conditions that were favorable and controllable. And we just stopped doing that, right? And so when you don't have enough large aerial tankers, when you're not removing the dead fuel and brush out of the forest, and then when you're not doing controlled burns, you're setting yourself up for these massive fire seasons. And so these bills effectively bring together a trifecta of support that will ultimately lead to fewer fires during the fire season.
Very nice. Another bill you sponsored recently was the Entree Act, which, first off, I'd like to say, well, I appreciate the effort that's gone through in order to have these acronyms. They're very fun. The
Yeah,
Entree
someone very
Act
clever.
would
Mm-hmm.
support local restaurant owners. So how would it do that?
That's right. Yeah, and it is an acronym. I'll spare you the acronym, but there was a program under the last COVID package that set aside $29 billion for restaurants. Unfortunately, that to qualify for it, you could only be a minority-owned business or certain qualifications, so it wasn't open to all restaurants. And then the other unfortunate thing was that $29 billion was used up by the restaurants within a few short weeks, and so that money hasn't been there for a long time. And as you know, especially in California, we keep shutting down our restaurants. We keep putting limitations on capacity, and they're seeing a downturn in patronage because of some of these mask mandates as well. So the restaurants are struggling. They still need help. The Entree Act basically refills this bucket. It makes it open to all business owners, regardless of ethnicity. And it puts $60 billion of money that frankly is already there from other COVID accounts that aren't being used or are being underrun. So we're transferring that money over. And then it will take the form of the Entree Act, which is effectively an additional lifeline to businesses that are still struggling, and they are. As I'm touring our district today, I'm in Simi Valley, but I'm going to all these restaurants, and they are literally still struggling to make ends meet. So this is something that's desperately needed.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are just joining us, we are here with Congressman Mike Garcia, who's telling us about what he's been up to advocating for his constituents over the past couple of weeks. Mike, I've seen you around. You just said you were, checking out the district. You also are holding up a couple of town halls over the next couple of weeks for your constituents, including one this very night, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We've got our fourth town hall of this year. This will be, I think the sixth or seventh town hall I've had since being in office, 15 months ago. So I'm trying to do them on average every 3 to 4 months. Tonight's will be in Simi Valley at the Reagan Library. It'll be outdoors because of COVID restrictions. It's a beautiful night, and it starts at 6 o'clock. There's no RSVP, so it's open to anyone and everyone throughout the district. It'll be focused on Simi Valley issues, but anyone in the district is welcome to attend. So hope to see folks out there, and it'll be focused primarily on questions and answer periods and getting the feedback from the constituents.
Sweet. Well, make sure that we put a link in our story that we add so that people will be able to find the information, not only for the in-person ones, but for the calls.
Yeah, and we've got 2 teletown halls. LA County has been a little more restrictive with in-person gatherings, so we're going to do 2 teletown halls on Friday, one for Simi Valley, Acton, and Agua Dulce, and then the other for the Antelope Valley as well. And so those will be posted hopefully on your website, but they'll also be posted on our social media and our websites as well. And again, we can actually get more attendance at the virtual and teletown halls. So looking forward to hearing from folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike, so much for that insight. We're coming to the end of our time here. What can we expect to see from your office in the next couple of weeks?
Well, we're still laser focused on helping as many folks as we can with Afghanistan COVID constituent services. We've got a great staff doing a lot of great things. I'm fighting the fight on the out of control spending in D.C. I'm fighting the fight on these pushes for raising our taxes in D.C. In the end, we've got to get accountability out of this administration for the debacle that came out of Afghanistan that cost 13 precious soldiers their lives.
You got a long road ahead of you. So thank you.
What's that?
I said you got a long road ahead of you. Good luck.
Yes, we do. Lots to do. So thank you, Jade. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Right.
For all of our listeners out there, you'll be able to read more about Congressman Garcia and what he's been up to in Washington over on our website at hometownstation.com or on social media at KHTS Radio.